Greetings. This is Rabbi Aaron Bakst, back with my podcast for this week. There's been a lot going on in the United States of America and in the rest of the world, but for this week's podcast, I'm going to focus specifically on what's going on in our own country. And a lot of really not great things and really some really terrible things um, with regards to the way Americans are being treated, way immigrants are being treated, Americans or not, and specifically around ICE and some of the comments that are coming out of the highest branches of our government. And well, while I don't want to speak to specific comments or specific actions or murders that have happened, I want to focus on something else. There's a very famous quote out there, and it's very very well known. And it's here's the quote: "First they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me." Now, this quote, of course, was by a prominent German pastor, Martin Niemöller. It is often referred to as a poem, but it's not a poem, and there are different versions of this quote that are out there because Niemöller would speak freely in his travels and and he would speak to different groups, and in his words would change sometimes depending on the groups he was speaking to. Um, and What I want to focus on is Niemöller specifically. So, in the very beginning of let's say the Nazi rise to power, um, Niemöller was actually someone who did not oppose early Nazi stuff, early Nazi ideas. He actually sympathized with many of the Nazi ideas and supported radically right wing political movements. But when Hitler came to power in 1933, that's when Niemöller became an outspoken critic, specifically of Hitler's interference in the Protestant church. And he actually spent the last 8 years of Nazi rule from 1937 to 1945 in Nazi prisons and concentration camps. Um, and the Another reason why there's different versions of the speech out there is because this particular quote originated in Niemöller's very often impromptu public speeches, and really what is important to note is the very powerful message behind the words, and that is that the guilt and responsibility that still resonated with Niemöller, but also that still resonate with every one of us today who may find ourselves in a situation where we're wondering, when do we act? Why have we not already acted? When do we speak up? When is it the right time? When is it the wrong time? And when is enough enough? And that's, I think, one way that we can learn, one lesson we can learn from Niemöller is, although he may have been sympathetic to early Nazi ideas, when Hitler came to power and he began to see what was really going on, his entire uh, thought process changed. And actually, what's interesting is that in 1946, Niemöller traveled on a lecture tour in the western zones of Allied occupied Germany, and in his own lectures, he publicly confessed his inaction and his indifference to the fate of many of the Nazis' victims. Um, he had remained silent at first, um, but then a light switch or a light bulb went off, and that's when he began to speak out, looking at actually Germans blaming other Germans, whether it was Germans who were of a different religion or from a different background or whatever, and they were looking for a quote unquote answer, a solution, and that was where the Nazi propaganda really began to fill that gap. But through his own confession, he wanted to show Germans how to accept responsibility for being complicit in what happened during the Nazi regime. And you know, there are those that are out there in today's world, that in today's United States, who believe that there are many similarities between Nazi Germany in the early 30s and 40s, and also all the way to the 40s, and also to the United States of today. I have read quotes from people who lived in Germany in the 30s and 40s, who are seeing what's going on in our country today and are commenting of this regarding the similarities and the differences. Um, this is not a matter of it's not a judgment call. I don't believe. Um, I think that the decision to treat other human beings as less than, regardless of who they are, where they're from, what they are, and so on and so forth. These are real serious problems that have really come to the surface, excuse me, in the last X number of years. And, I applaud Niemöller for being able to eventually come out and say, you know, I didn't do enough early enough. I should have acted sooner. And if you are in the world today, in the United States of America or anywhere, and you believe that this is the time for you to speak out, for you to do something to go against hatred, then I applaud you, and I support you, and I think you should. There are also those who believe that anyone who thinks that way is just not really seeing the reality, that they're jumping to conclusions. They are uh, 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 assuming the worst, and really it's not quote unquote that bad. I think that neither side of this equation see things in reality. I think that there's a reality, a little bit of a reality in both sides of this equation. But the truth is that if there's any piece of this that can be avoided, if there's any way that we can prevent the mistakes of the past from happening, that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to learn from history so we don't repeat the same mistakes. We're going to make other mistakes, but we're supposed to learn from history. I mean, that's what parenting is all about: is teaching your children how to learn from their mistakes, how to who learn from the mistakes that we made, so they don't make the same mistakes. And I believe that Niemöller, or at least his quote, speaks to that. This is what happens if you don't stand up. When it's time for people to stand up for you, there's no one left. And then you're in trouble. I don't believe it is ludicrous to say, to equate today with the past. I personally do not believe that we are at a Gestapo place yet. I do not believe that we are that uh, um, far down, if you will, or we're not that far in the evil and the bad. But I think that we could be getting there, and I believe it's important for all of us to speak up, to act out, to protest, to do what we need to do. But the most important thing that we can do is vote when it comes time for elections, vote. Vote your conscience. Vote what's right. No matter how much the other side is on you. No matter if you feel threatened or if you feel scared or intimidated, it is the power that we have as Americans to vote. Protest, 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 and then vote. Vote. That's my comments for this week. I will be in Israel next week on a rabbinic conference tour. So there will be no podcast next week. But I will return in 2 weeks with observations and reactions from my very important trip to Eretz Israel. I wish you an early Shabbat Shalom.